So yeah, let's just talk about Flexbox. I'll run through an example. Has anybody used Flexbox yet? Has anybody used Grid? I see people shaking their head yes using Grid, but no to Flexbox. All right. So Flexbox, I like Flexbox. That's what I usually use. I'm going to just show you an example of using Flexbox. So yesterday, we had this example site, company name, or just like a standard Bootstrap example. I just want to see Bootstrap. Where is it? Examples. So I think it's this one. Yeah. So I'm going to kind of replicate this, just the nav bar using Flexbox. Does anybody have any questions so far? Nope. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm actually going to whiteboard what this kind of is going to look like. Not whiteboard. Do some wireframing. Wireframing is like whiteboarding in that instead of writing functions, you're just doing an outline of the HTML architecture. So I'm just going to use this thing called limnew. Try it for free. All right. This is like an alternative. It's like team whiteboardings of your dreams, so you can actually write whiteboard. So I'm going to make an example like something like this. So in order to do that, I need to create, let's create, do I have a box? A box that's going to represent the web page. So something like that. And now I'm going to create this nav bar at the very top. So I'm going to create a nav bar like so, just keep it rough. And then, so inside this nav bar, it looks like I've got two different sections. I've got a company name or like a logo, and then I have some links and a sign up button. When I hover over, it kind of does something. So I've got two sections. I've got the logo right here, or where the company name is. And I've also got this set of buttons or links. So I can say, hey, inside of there, I've got another section. And inside of there, I've got these links or buttons. I forgot how many there were. 3, let's just say 4 for the time being. So I've got a nav, and then a logo, and a set of buttons. Does anybody have any questions about this wireframe? Nope. If I wanted to continue, I can do here's that other section. Yeah. Anyway. But I'm just going to do the nav bar first. So in here, I'm inside a Flexbox CSS directory. I'm going to touch an index.html and a styles.css file. I'm going to code index and styles. Let's open them both up, and I'm going to separate them. All right, can I open up the index? Let's see if I can actually open up the index HTML and not get an error. Cool error. See if I can get that to work. There we go. Here's actually that blank index.html file. Doesn't have a header body yet. So inside the index.html, I can literally just do bang and press enter, and it gives a very basic boilerplate HTML architecture, or I can type in HTML, and if you have plugins, you can use any different type of plugin, such as that, and delete all that stuff. Don't worry about this stuff right here. So I'm just going to use this boilerplate right here. So it's got the script tag at the very bottom. We're not going to be doing any JavaScript. Inside the title, I can literally say like, I don't know, bootstrap or Flexbox example. And then over here, instead of index.html, it'll say Flexbox example. So inside of the body now, I'm going to create this header or this nav bar. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a nav. And inside that nav, I've got two divs, this one, which is like a logo, and then this big square one. So I can say, I'm going to make that one H1, and just say company name. And then inside this, I'm going to have another div. And then inside this div, I've got 4 links, I guess. How do I create a link? What does a link look like? What does the link tag look like?
Is that the lowercase a?
Yep, it's just the A, like so. So I can say like features, or what does it say? Features, enterprise, and support. I'll just do that. Features, enterprise, support, and I guess login. Features, enterprise, support, and let's do login. Now if I save that, come over to my Flexbox, HTML, cool. But see, so it looks like I need inside my A tag, crap. I need an href as to like what I'm actually linking to. And I'm not linking to anything right now. So if I do that, there I've got that underline, and I click on them, it doesn't go anywhere. Doesn't look anything like this though. So that's where I need to do some styling. So inside my H1, I'm going to do an ID of like logo, because that's generally what that goes there. And then inside this div, I'm going to say, it's going to make it a class and have it be nav buttons. Go here, refresh it, cool. So inside here, I've got this one div, which is the company logo, and then this other div, which consists of all the nav buttons. But they're on different lines. I want them to be right next to each other. So the first thing I need to do is import my style sheets into my file, or into my HTML. Cool. Now with Flexbox, it's all about how your parent container interacts with, or how it's all dependent on your parent container and your child elements. So in your parent container, you'll have some attribute that will be dependent upon, or I'm sorry, your child inside your parent container, you'll have some CSS properties that will make your children react differently or display differently. So if I do CSS Flexbox and come over here, the CSS tricks is a great documentation on different aspects of CSS. I use this all the time. So a complete guide to Flexbox. See, we have a container right here, it's by the purple, and then the little yellow or orange elements are the children. So the first thing I need to do is inside my container element, I need to have the property display with a value of flex. So I'm just gonna do body initially. So this has everything in the body. I'm gonna do margin of 0 just to start out with. So my parent container is this nav, right? So let's see, there we go. Here's the parent container, and then here are the two children. I want them to be side by side. So the first thing I need to do is target the nav element. So nav bar, now I can do display flex. I do display flex. A lot of times there's inline, like block elements or inline display, but this one we want to be flex. If I come back here, refresh it, okay, now it's side by side. That's great. We're slowly getting there. But now let's keep on looking. So we have them right next to each other. We have another property called flex direction, where we can change the direction of how things interact. So let's just say flex direction, and let's do, we can do column like so. And now it puts it back into a column instead of a row. We could also do column reverse, and that reverses them. But if we just don't include it at all, we can just keep it like that. Or if we want to change it, we can do row reverse and have it appear on this other side. It just mirrors. But the default looks good, so we don't even need flex direction. But if I keep on going down, I've got flex wrap. That doesn't really make, that's okay. But here we go. We have justify content is another property, which determines how it wants to be spaced inside that parent div, inside that nav div. So that purple is the parent div, and all these are the child elements of that parent div. So this is a child element, and then this entire other thing is a child element. So right now, they're right next to each other, but now we want to add some spacing to that. So we can do justify content, and how do we want it to look? We can do, flex end, coming here, how it kind of goes back there. We can do center, so justify content, center it. And now everything's centered, but we want something to be like space around, space evenly, or space between. Space, let's go to, so flex items are evenly distributed in line for space between. Space around, flex items are evenly distributed in line with half size spaces on either end and evenly aligned. Let's do space between and see how that looks. That is more, that's getting to how we kind of want it to look right now. What questions do you have about Flexbox? Nothing? No questions? All right. So again, just Flexbox, those are the main things you're going to be using is flex, display flex, and then justify content to make things space evenly if they're in a row. If you want things to be in a column or row reverse, you can do flex direction. And you can also change the order of items, but just to keep things simple right now, just display flex, justify content, and whichever value you want that to be. So if I shrink this all the way down, I kind of want that to go on the next level because it's really smushed. So that's what that flex wrap looks like. Flex wrap, wrap. So I can say flex wrap, wrap. Now, if I refresh it, once it collides with once those two child elements like touch one another, it'll go to the next line, like so. So that looks a little bit better. But we're still not even close to making this look somewhat similar. So now we want to change. Does anybody have any questions about Flexbox? Nope. All right, let's try to make this look a little bit nicer. We can do, let's make it have a border around it. So it looks like we have a border near the end of it. We can do border. Well, how does the border property? Border, CSS, see what that looks like. So we have border, border style. So we did have different styles. I'm gonna go back. Border property here. So it looks like the border takes in 3 different elements or values. We have the width of the border, the type of the border, and then the color of the border. So the width, style, and color. So we can do border. Let's do 2 pixels, solid, and gray initially. Oh. All right, that looks a little bit better, but I don't want the border to go all the way around. I just want it to be at the bottom of it. So I can do border bottom. There we go. All right, we're slowly getting there. We have a border bottom. Looks like this is like a little, looks like a gradient, but let's not worry about gradients yet. But now I need, let's try to get the logo to not be at the very edge of the screen right there. So I can target the ID of logo. How do I target an ID in CSS?
Hashtag the name.
Hashtag the name of the ID. So I'm just going to do like a margin left. And what is margin? Anybody? There we go.
I think that's the space outside of the border.
Does space outside of the border. So if we open up the Chrome DevTools, something called the box model, if I click up here, select an element on the page and inspect it, I can come over here and inspect this. If I inspect it like that, I can see like the actual the CSS attributes of it. So I can say like margin left 0, 15 px. And down here you can see, where is it? I'm gonna close that. Here's the box model of that element. So here's the actual text. Here's the padding around it. There's the border, and here's the margin. And you can see that the H1 margin is defaulted to 19.92 pixels. And then since I did margin left, margin left of 15, it's 15 here. And I guess there's no margin on the right. So you can inspect all the elements here, like the box model. So margin left. Now if I refresh that, and there's the 20 pixels. So it looks like there isn't any margin usually. So if I clear that, so yeah, it looks like there isn't any margin typically. It's just a margin top and bottom for H1 tag by default. All right, so there's the company name. Now let's get into the nav buttons. So for the nav buttons, it's at the very top. Maybe I want to do add some margin to that. So I can do .nav buttons. And if I want to do margin all the way around an element, instead of just targeting margin left, I can target all the elements or all sides of the margin or of that tag by doing space, like the value followed by space. So if I wanted a margin top, I can do 10 pixels. If I wanted a margin right, I can do 5 pixels. If I wanted a margin bottom, I can do like 25 pixels. And if I wanted a margin left, I can do like 45 pixels. So if I add 4 attributes or 4 values, it goes top, right, left, or top, right, bottom, left, and counter or clockwise. So top, right, bottom, left. If I refresh that, oh, what happened? Why didn't it do it? Nav buttons. There we go. So there we go. I've got that. So if I look at it, where is it? Come on. You can kind of see the top. See how like right here, it's like top is 10, right is 5, bottom is 25, left is 45. But I don't want that. I just want to target the top, do margin top of 20 pixels. There. So it's kind of in the center now. Now, I don't like how these have a default of with everything underlined. I want it to be just, I don't want the underline there. So I can target all the A tags in my entire web page and do text decoration equals none. Refresh. Now I've got no text decoration on that. I want to make those colors to be black. Whoop. Set of purple. Here we go. It's good. And then I want to add some padding in between them of like 20 pixels of all around. So they're too close together. I want them to have some padding. Okay, this is starting to look a little bit better. Does anybody have any questions about the process of what I'm doing? All right. So now, so in this thing, in this nav bar, each element, so each link, I hover over it, there's an underline underneath it, but when I get to the last element, that last element is a different color, it's got a border, and when I hover over it, it changes color. I kind of want to do that in mine as well. So how do I target the last? So I've got 4 child A tags. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4. If I want to target the very last child element or the very last, A tag, I can do target colon last child, and I can give it a border of 2 pixels, solid, and let's make it purple. So if I refresh that, it gives it a border, the last element in this list of elements, a border. You can also do like second, I think it's like, no, like 2, a first child. We're gonna do first child. There's a way to do like the second child as well. But I want to do the last child. And over here, let's actually make it blue. I don't like that blue, so if I hover over this, I can, how do I change? There we go. That's like too much of a blue. I want it to be like a baby blue, kind of like I don't know. There, that's good. Okay. And if you're on a Mac, you can actually figure out what type of colors are in websites by just typing in, bringing up your search light and typing color. And you got this digital color meter. And there you can highlight whatever colors are. Whoop. So that's an RGB value of 0, 107, 249. So I can 0, 107, and 249. So if I refresh it, it's like the same color as that bootstrap. But now this looks like it has a little radius around its border. So I can do border radius of, let's say, 10 pixels. And then let's give it a margin, a margin right of 10 pixels. So I'm over here. Okay, we're starting to get someplace. Inside the nav, actually, I don't want this at the very top. I want to give it some padding. So I want to give it some top and bottom padding, but not left and right. So I can do padding for top and bottom. If I only give it 2 pixels or 2 values, that's values. 10 pixels is the top and bottom right here, and 0 for the left and right. So I refresh. Okay, now I've got some padding. So this nth child, it's called a pseudo class. So now when I hover over, I need to do something when I hover over the login or whatever it's called, the sign up. I guess this one's called login. I want it to change colors. So I can do a, let's see, a.hover background color equals, let's make it the same color as this. And I want the color to be white. So if I refresh this, I've got that. What questions do you have about CSS and pseudo classes? This hover, this colon hover, it's called a pseudo class. There's also target, and all these other ones, and we'll do more shortly. We're just going to be messing around with CSS right now. Any questions about kind of how I did this? Nope. So with that, I'm going to go back to here and open up my, what is it, number guessing game. And mess around with the design a little bit. All right, there we go. I'm going to bring this over. I'm going to change some of this up a little bit now. Just make it a little bit more pretty. All right. So let's bring this up. Code dash R period. Oh, so I've got my index. Cool. So I'm done with the JavaScript for the time being. Got my HTML and CSS. So I want to change this button to make it look a little bit prettier. So I can say, let's see, it's hashtag submit button. And I'm going to do a margin of 20 pixels on the top and bottom and 0 of left and right. I'm going to give it a width of 10%. So that's means it's going to be 10% the width of the div, the container div. If I did 50%, it's actually going to be the entire width, 50% the width of the screen. So if I refresh it, there we go. But I don't want it to be 50%. I just want it to be 10%. I want to give it a height of, let's say, 30 pixels. Okay, so it's starting to look a little bit better. I'm going to give it a border of 1 pixel solid and then say blue. Okay. Starting to look, still doesn't look that great. I don't like that outline. So when I click on it, whoop, I don't like how it gives me that blue outline a little bit. So I can do outline, none. Text decoration, none. All right, let's just take a look at this. So now, cool. But I want this to look a little three-dimensional instead of just like flat. So I can create something which is called a box shadow. If I look up box shadow, shadow CSS, box shadow takes in 2 properties. Looks like it's the X and Y, like the angle that the shadow looks like. So it says, yeah, it's the offset, the H offset, V offset, the blur, the spread, and the color. So I can take in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 technically. So I'm just going to look at this one. So here are different examples. I kind of want it to look like this one. So I'm just going to copy that. Box shadow like so. And that gives it a little, that's probably too much initially. I'm going to do 3, 3, 3. Or no, let's do that 5. There we go. What questions do you have about box shadow? All right. So now when I hover over, it doesn't, like when I click that, there's no like indication that I'm clicking it. It doesn't interact. It's not that dynamic. So when I do a hover, I want it to do something. So submit button, pseudo class of hover. I want the background color to change to say like light blue. So if I refresh, so now there it kind of hovers over it, changes. But it changes abruptly. It's like I want it to gradually change colors. So I can do transition, which says, hey, what property do you want it to transition? I want it to transition all the properties, and I want it to take like 3 seconds to change. So watch how slow this takes to change colors now. I can even make this like black, dark orchid. See how it takes a long time? That's too fast. I just wanted to do 500 milliseconds, so half a second. That's a little bit better. Now I want to change the color to white. Okay, still looking a little bit better. But I want it to look like, does anybody have any questions about the different properties I'm using? Who has not seen these properties? Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, you know how you did the hover pseudo class? Can you chain pseudo classes in one line, or do you just
like hover and target or active type of thing?
Yeah.
I am not sure. That's a good question. Can you chain pseudo classes CSS? I don't think so. I think you would just create a new, but I've never tried that before. That's a good good thing to try out. So I've never seen it done before.
Yeah, cool. I'll look it up then.
Okay. So there I'm hovering over it, and then when I leave the div, it goes back. Hover. Cool. But when I hover over it, I want it to look like the button moves. So I can do, instead of a box shadow of that, of this 3 pixels, I can do, let's do 8 pixels, 8 pixels, 8 pixels. So if I refresh, I hover, now it kind of looks like it's getting bigger, like it's moving further away from the screen. Except when I'm actually hovering over it, the button doesn't move. So I can actually transform the button to like move in relation to the screen by using the transform CSS property, which takes in a translate method type of thing, and it takes in 2 values. And these are the X and Y coordinates that you want, how much you want the button to move. So I can say like, hey, move the button 20 pixels. Is that the X and Y? So that's right 20 pixels, and like move it down 15 pixels. So this is going to be kind of crazy. Oh, it didn't work. Why not? Transform, translate. Maybe it didn't. There it goes. See how it kind of moved? But that's kind of stupid. There's kind of no point for a button to move like that. But you want maybe move it -3 pixels. So there it kind of looks like it's moving up, and the back shadow is getting bigger. So it looks like it's moving away from the screen.
How does transition work, Tom? Under div.
So the transition takes in 2 values. This could be like, hey, what element do you want to target in the submit button? So I can target, let's say, the box shadow or the height. Or no, because that doesn't change at all. So I can say like the background. Or where is it? Yeah, background color or the border. I'm going to do the background color. See if this works. See, the transition only targets the background color. Everything else changes like immediately, whereas the background color takes a little while to change. So the second value is how fast you want the transition to occur. So do you want it to take 3 seconds to occur? Like, see how it took 3 seconds for the background color to change? Or that didn't work. See how it took 3 seconds to the background color to change, but it moved, it transformed moved the button up 3 pixels immediately, and it made the box shadow change immediately. Because I'm only targeting the background color to transition for 3 seconds.
Oh, okay.
But if I wanted to target all the elements here, I can type in all. See, every property that is able to undergo a transition will do so. So if I refresh, see how it took 3 seconds for it moved to slowly move up and change. Yep.
Is there a way to make it cycle through colors?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, asking for a friend.
Yeah. So we have that going, but I also want to change when I hover over it the cursor, because it's like just the normal arrow cursor. So I want to change cursor types CSS. So we have all these different cursor types. We have pointer, yeah, there's like a million of them. We have like, let's use grab. So I'm going to use hover. Let's do cursor grab. So when I hover over this now, the cursor should change like so. Whoop. So, but when I click it, it doesn't, there's no like indication that I'm actually clicking it. There's no visual thing that's changing when I'm clicking it. So I can do another active state. Like when I click on something, I want it to be active. So I can do hashtag submit button. When it's an active state, which means when a user is actively clicking on that element, that means it's an active state. So I can change the background color to blue. Yeah, color to white. Cursor to grabbing now. Then I also want to make it go back to its original box shadow. So if I refresh it, I hover over it, and then when I click it, see how the fist little go like changes, and the background color changes, and then the box shadow changes. So it's actually like, hey, click it. So there's like a visual indication that I've actually clicked this button, like so. And then if I like 50, click it, 65, click it, cool. But now this list, I don't want these 1 and 2s to show up here. So I can even just target the number list. Number list. Is it list style? None. So now I 50, hover, click it. So now it got rid of those values. And you can like do a bunch of stuff with this number guessing game. Does anybody have any questions on the CSS?
Can you just go back to your CSS real quick?
Yep. All right. If nobody has any questions, let's stop and take a 5-minute break, and we'll come back and talk about local storage, and we'll continue to build upon our number guessing game.